All right, let's unpack this. It feels like in today's world, for any organization plugged into the digital realm, it's less about if they'll face a cyber incident and much more about when that moment will arrive. So, how do you even prepare for the inevitable?
Exactly. That's what we're diving deep into today. Incident response. It's really the crucial set of strategies, the actions an organization takes when those security incidents actually happen.
Right.
Think of it like, every building has fire extinguishers, exit plans.
You sure?
Incident response is basically that same essential preparedness, but for your digital environment.
Absolutely essential. And to navigate this, well, it's a complex landscape, isn't it? We've gathered some really valuable resources.
Yeah, okay.
We're looking at insights from the Florida Industrial Security Working Group, the latest NIST Special Publication, 861 Revision 3, and some practical kind of boots on the ground guidance too.
Right, how to actually build these capabilities.
Yeah, our goal here is to sort of distill this down into actionable intelligence, the steps any organization really needs to understand and implement across that whole incident response lifecycle.
And that lifecycle, as both NIST and the Florida group outline it, it begins way before any alarm bells start ringing. It starts with that critical phase.
Preparation.
Yeah. This is where you build your defenses, plan your counter moves, lay the groundwork.
Right. And a cornerstone of that preparation, according to the Florida group, is setting up a dedicated incident response team, an IRT, and developing a comprehensive incident response plan, the IRP. It sounds like these aren't just, paperwork exercises.
Oh, not at all. They're essential frameworks for action. In your IRP, it needs to be rooted in a solid understanding of your organization's specific risks.
Okay.
Always considering that classic triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability, the CIA.
CIA, right. That helps prioritize what you're protecting.
Exactly. What you need to protect most fiercely and what the potential fallout of a breach could actually look like for you.
Okay, now, when we talk about actually preparing, what does that look like day to day? We saw some really practical examples, I think, in the Armor Point materials.
Yeah, good examples there.
Like creating really clear-cut policies that define exactly what counts as a security incident.
Super important.
And who on the team is responsible for taking which actions? Who does what?
That's spot on. Preparation also involves setting up crystal clear procedures for how incidents get reported internally.
So everyone knows who to call.
Yeah, making sure everyone knows who to contact, how to do it. Then there's the vital element of communication protocols, how information is going to flow during a crisis.
Right, because chaos can take over fast.
It really can. And maybe most illuminating are tabletop exercises. Think of these as like simulated cyber attacks.
Okay, like a practice run.
Exactly. A chance to walk through different scenarios in a controlled environment, spot any weaknesses in your plan before a real threat hits.
It's like rehearsing for a play, but the stakes are way higher in cybersecurity.
Definitely. The Florida group also highlighted the significance of training, especially when you're dealing with sensitive data.
Training is key?
Yeah, they specifically mentioned training for things like assured file transfers, derivative classification.
Okay.
And making sure data transfer agents and subject matter experts, your SMEs, are really well versed in preventing classified data spills, stopping it before it happens.
So preventing data from being mishandled in the first place.
These proactive steps are absolutely vital, particularly for organizations handling sensitive info regularly. They also underscore using security classification guides,
right,
properly labeling data,
right,
and employing sanitization tools to make sure data is securely wiped when it's no longer needed. You're essentially building layers of defense.
It's fascinating how all these pieces fit together. Even the NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0, which the updated SP 861 aligns with, that plays a role here too, right, in this initial stage.
It does. Functions like govern, identify, and protect. While they aren't directly involved in responding to an active attack.
Right, they're more foundational.
Exactly. They lay the groundwork for an effective response by focusing on that broader, proactive cybersecurity risk management.
Okay, so a strong preventative posture makes your reactive capabilities much better when, inevitably something does get through.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that leads us right into the next critical stage: detection and analysis.
Okay, so how do we spot the trouble?
Well, imagine it's, a Tuesday afternoon. And suddenly your security team starts seeing some weird network traffic. How do you even know if that's a real problem or just noise?
Right, so something's potentially stirring. Our sources tell us incidents can be flagged by individuals inside the organization.
People seeing something odd.
Which loops back to why those clear reporting procedures we talked about are so important, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But they can also be picked up through automated internal systems, external threat monitoring, that kind of thing.
Yeah, this is where your cybersecurity toolkit really earns its keep. We're talking security logs, physical access controls, and crucially, the awareness of your own people.
It's about having multiple sensors, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Multiple sensors in your digital environment.
And both NIST and ArmorPoint, they emphasize specific tech here, like SIEM systems.
Right. Security information and event management.
Like central hubs that collect and analyze security logs from, well, everywhere.
Pretty much across your entire infrastructure. And also things like intrusion detection systems, IDS.
Like digital tripwires.
Kinda, yeah. Looking for suspicious activity. And good old antivirus software, too. These are constantly scanning, looking for anomalies.
So they're sifting through mountains of data, trying to find that needle in the haystack.
They are indeed. Trying to identify those subtle deviations from the norm that might signal a threat or a compromise. But the challenge isn't just being alerted.
It's figuring out if it's real.
Right. It's being able to separate the signal from the noise, distinguish between a false positive, something that looks bad but isn't.
And a genuine security event that needs immediate attention. That's a huge challenge.
It really is. All those alerts can create a real deluge.
So once you have a potential incident flagged, what techniques do security teams actually use to figure out what's going on? The NIST document outlines several key approaches, starting with really knowing what normal looks like on your network.
But that baseline understanding is absolutely fundamental. You got to know what's typical to spot what's not.
That makes sense.
NIST also highlights robust log retention policies, making sure you're collecting logs from all your critical systems. The clues, they might be scattered across multiple logs.
Right. And the ability to piece those clues together is key, mapping events across different systems.
Yeah, correlation.
Making sure your server clocks are synchronized so the timestamps line up.
Oh, crucial for timelines.
And even building a knowledge base of past incidents. That can speed up analysis, right?
Dramatically. And they also mentioned proactively using scanning tech to look for known vulnerabilities.
Okay, so it's about getting a clearer picture. NIST also makes a useful distinction, talking about precursors and indicators.
Yeah, that's helpful. A precursor might be, say, an unusual spike in traffic to a known malicious IP address. A sign an attack might be brewing.
A warning sign.
Exactly. An indicator, on the other hand, is more direct. It's a sign an incident is underway or has already happened, like detecting a ransomware file on a server.
Got it. So it sounds like mature detection and analysis isn't just about reacting to obvious red flags, but also looking for those subtle whispers of trouble before and during an incident.
You got it.
Okay, so we've spotted something, we've dug into it, confirmed it's real. What's the next move? Containment.
Now we enter the crucial phase of containment, eradication, and recovery. Big phase.
Okay.
Both NIST and the Florida Group emphasize having well-defined procedures ready before you need them for confirmed or even suspected incidents.
Including specific stuff like data spill cleanups? The Florida Group mentioned that.
Yeah, they emphasize that particularly. Containment is really all about damage control, right?
Limiting the blast radius, stopping the spread.
Exactly. Preventing the incident from spreading further in your digital infrastructure. And effective containment, it requires clearly defined roles and responsibilities within that IRT.
Everyone knows their job.
Yeah, everyone needs to know their part in isolating the affected systems. The ArmorPoint article had a great example.
The ransomware one.
Yeah. In a ransomware attack, the immediate action is disconnect the infected machines from the network. Stop the malware encrypting other files.
That makes perfect sense. You're basically building a digital quarantine zone around the problem.
Precisely. And then comes eradication. That's all about rooting out the threat completely.
Removing the ransomware, getting rid of the malware.
Exactly. And once you've contained and eradicated, the focus shifts to recovery.
Getting back to normal.
Bringing your systems back online. Getting back to business as usual. NIST outlines several key recovery actions here.
Like patching things up.
Yeah. Applying necessary security patches to close the vulnerabilities that were exploited. Strengthening firewall rules. Maybe reinstalling or updating security software.
And restoring data.
Restoring data from clean backups, which really highlights how critical having good backups is in the first place.
Absolutely. Can't recover if there's nothing to restore.
Right. and even changing passwords across the organization sometimes as a precaution.
And for places using containers, it sounds like recovery can be faster.
Yeah, for containerized environments, recovery can involve rapidly spinning up new, clean instances of applications and virtual machines from trusted templates. It can definitely offer a much faster path to restoring services.
So it's about restoring functionality, but also security and confidence.
Exactly. Now, the Florida Industrial Security Working Group, they get very specific when it comes to handling classified data skills.
Right. They put a lot of focus on the ISSM, the Information Systems Security Manager.
They do. The ISSM takes a really central role in minimizing the damage, collaborating with security teams, meticulously documenting everything.
Interviewing people to see how bad the spill was.
Yeah, interviewing personnel to understand the scope, assessing the level of contamination, and then leading the cleanup using approved sanitization or even data destruction procedures.
Following strict guidelines from NIST
All according to those guidelines. It's a highly detailed, incredibly important process. Really underscores the need for specific, well-rehearsed procedures, especially with highly sensitive information.
Definitely not something you want to figure out on the fly.
No way. Now, once the immediate crisis is handled, there's a phase NIST points out is often overlooked, but it's absolutely vital for long-term security.
Post-incident activity.
That's the one.
Ah, yes, the lessons learned phase. Sounds like this is where you take a breath and really dissect what happened.
Precisely. The incident response team should get together, convene a meeting, thoroughly review the entire incident lifecycle.
How do we do?
Yeah, evaluate the effectiveness of the response, and, most importantly, identify actionable steps to prevent similar incidents down the line.
So documentation is key here.
Absolutely. Comprehensive documentation of everything, how it was detected, what actions were taken during each phase, what the overall impact was on the organization.
And I imagine having, established baselines and KPIs for your incident management program helps here to objectively assess performance.
It's incredibly valuable at this stage. Allows for data-driven improvements, pinpointing areas where you can get better.
Makes sense.
And NIST also raises some interesting points about cost effectiveness, especially for small businesses.
Right. They might not have a huge dedicated team.
Exactly. So they suggest the concept of virtual CSIRTs, computer security incident response teams, where you assemble a team from existing staff as needed.
Okay, leverage internal expertise.
Right, and also the option of reporting incidents to ISAC's Information Sharing and Analysis Centers.
To share intel and learn from others?
Yep. Leverage shared threat intelligence and best practices. It makes a lot of sense. Not every organization has the budget for a large, dedicated security team.
And it's good to know there are collaborative resources like ISACs available. It really highlights that this whole process is about continuous improvement.
It really is. Which ties nicely back into the NIST CSF 2.0, where lessons learned from every incident should feed back into and strengthen all the other cybersecurity functions.
It's a virtuous cycle, isn't it? You prepare, you respond, you learn.
And then you refine your preparation based on those hard-won lessons. Now, the Florida group also strongly emphasizes the overall impact incidents can have.
And why planning is so critical for minimizing those consequences.
Exactly. They really drive home that proactive planning is crucial for minimizing those potentially devastating consequences.
And they provide some really practical insights into those IRP tabletop exercises we mentioned.
So they delve deeper.
It's not just running through motions, it's about defining roles, establishing priorities under pressure.
Verifying the step-by-step sequence of your response.
Understanding communication needs, identifying the tools you'll need.
Evaluating your strategies, your procedures.
Yeah.
And ultimately, uncovering any missing pieces in your plan before a real crisis hits.
Finding the gaps beforehand.
Exactly. They even break down the essential steps in designing and conducting these exercises. Defining scope, objectives, coordinating logistics, developing realistic materials. It's a very structured approach.
Stress testing your readiness.
That's a good way to put it.
And to really show how this works, the Florida group offers that specific example scenario, the classified data spill.
Yeah, and the detailed actions the ISSM takes, it really helps you visualize how the plan translates into real-world execution.
You know, speaking of understanding your organization's security posture and readiness, a fantastic resource to consider is IrmaturityAssessment.com.
Ah, good point.
They offer tools to help you gauge the current maturity of your incident response capabilities, find those key areas where you maybe need to strengthen your defenses.
That kind of objective self-assessment is, well, it's invaluable for any organization that's serious about improving its resilience to cyber threats. A really good first step.
Okay, so To bring our deep dive toward a close here, we've explored these essential stages of the incident response life cycle, right?
Yep, the whole cycle.
The proactive groundwork of preparation, the critical steps of detection and analysis when something happens.
Then the decisive actions. Containment, eradication, recovery.
To neutralize the threat, get back online, and that often overlooked but crucial phase of post-incident activity, learning and improving.
Right. And we've really underscored the foundational importance of thorough planning, comprehensive training for your people.
Can't forget the people.
Never. And embracing that culture of continuous improvement. Those are the cornerstones for building a resilient defense against what are, unfortunately, increasingly inevitable incidents.
Absolutely. And as you, our listener, are reflecting on everything we've discussed, it might be really beneficial to think about the current state of your own or your organization's incident response capabilities.
Where are you right now?
Yeah. The Florida Industrial Security Working Group document actually includes several different exercise scenarios in Figure 2. Could be a really useful starting point for that self-reflection.
Good practical examples there.
And, as you're thinking about your overall cyber risk strategy and maybe the financial side of things, another valuable resource to explore is cyberinsurancecalc.com.
Ah, the financial piece. Important.
Understanding your potential financial exposure if an incident does happen. That's a critical piece of that broader risk management puzzle, isn't it?
That's an excellent point. Quantifying that potential financial impact, well, it can often be a powerful motivator for investing in better preparedness. Really puts it in perspective.
For sure. So here's a final thought to really chew on. Given this constantly evolving threat landscape, the ever-increasing sophistication of cyber attacks, how can organizations truly cultivate a deeply ingrained culture?
Yeah, make it part of the DNA.
Exactly. A culture of proactive incident response and continuous learning to genuinely minimize the impact of future security events. It's not just about having a plan gathering dust on a shelf.
No, it has to be living, breathing.
It's about making incident response a living, breathing part of your organizational DNA. How do you achieve that? Something to think about.